Good morning, everyone. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all members of TerraForce. Thank you for being punctual, and I hope everyone comes well prepared for today's meeting. My name is Mifzal Shadanis, A203040, and I will be chairing today's meeting. So, first of all, as usual, I would like to invite each one of you guys to introduce yourself first before we start.
Good morning, Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Arif Syakan bin Ahmad, A202406. Let's have a wonderful meeting today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Muhammad Faisal bin Sufi, A202497, and nice to meet you all.
Hello everyone, I'm Kirtikaa Rajasengodan, A204013.
Hi everyone, my name is Chang with matric number A202-43.
All right, thank you. So, since everyone is present, let's formally begin. First of all, before we proceed, I'd like to remind that this is a decision-making meeting, not a platform for you guys to pitch your idea. Our goal is to evaluate the proposed resolutions from the Pentagon on plastic waste management in urban areas. We examine them from multiple perspectives and agree on the most viable and impactful approach. So our agenda today is as follows. First, I will invite each panel member to present their resolution from your respective perspective. Then we will work towards a collective consensus on one or two resolutions to be adopted by the task force. Okay, I encourage constructive disagreement, but let's ensure all exchanges remain professional and respectful. So, all right, if there's no objection, let's proceed. To start, can I hear from Arif on the economic and operational perspective one?
Thank you so much, Mifzal. So, good morning, everyone. I would like to begin by framing the context of our problem. Nowadays, urban councils face high landfill costs, while small plastic collectors struggle with unstable income. Because households lack incentives to sort waste, recycling remains inconsistent and plastics end up in landfills. That is why today I support the plastic for profit urban recycling task model, which allows households and collectors to sell sorted plastics through a structured market. I will briefly explain how this works. First, on financial sustainability. Right now, councils are spending a lot on landfill and waste management, while collectors are dealing with unstable income and low recycling value. This model changes the approach by treating plastic waste as something with real market value. When households and collectors can sell properly sorted plastics at consistent prices, the system starts paying for itself. Councils now can reduce landfill costs and collectors get a more stable income stream. So financially, this is a more balanced and sustainable setup. Secondly, incentives actually drive behavior. We have seen that awareness alone does not really work long term. I strongly believe that most people will recycle consistently only when there is a clear benefit for them. By offering direct financial incentive, households are more willing to sort their waste and collectors have a reason to stay active. This naturally aligns individual behavior with environmental goals instead of relying purely on voluntary participation. Third, scalability and private sector involvement. What I like about this resolution is that it does not rely heavily on government funding. By involving startups and private operators, the system can scale faster and more efficiently. It
Excuse
also
me, Arif.
opens up. Yeah,
Excuse
sure.
me for interrupting. But I'd like to challenge one aspect before we move on.
Yeah.
I can see that profit-based model is compelling, but may I know how we can prevent this scenario where profit motive override environmental standards like selective recycling or exclusion of low-value plastic?
That's a fair concern, Mifzal. Good question, actually. So, when it comes to that situation, I think this is where government oversight and regulatory safeguards should come in. So, pricing mechanisms, material standards, and environmental compliance must be enforced at all levels so that we can ensure environmental integrity is maintained. In that way, I believe we can ensure a maximum implementation of this whole incentive. So, moving on to my main point. The third reason why this will work is because of the scalability and private sector involvement. This incentive will not rely heavily on government funding. In fact, it will also open up opportunities for innovation, job creation, and a more stable recycling supply chain, which eventually makes a practical for long-term implementation in urban areas. So to summarize for my part, I think this model will address the core problem by reducing landfill pressure, creating stable income opportunities, and making recycling economically sustainable. For all those reasons, I believe this is the most practical and effective resolution to move forward with. That is all for my part. Thank you.
Thank you, Arif. That was the very structured presentation. Okay, if there's no further points on this, can we move forward to the social perspective, Faisal?
Yeah, thank you, Mirza. So from a social perspective, right, I believe plastic waste is mainly a behavioral and cultural issue. As someone who grew up in an urban area, plastic waste has always been part of my daily surroundings, from takeaway containers to food packaging to bottles and shopping bags in public spaces. Plastic use has become a normal part of urban life. Over time, this has led to pollutions, health concern, clogged drainage system, and a lower quality of urban living. The problem is not how much plastic waste has we produced, but the habits behind it. Urban communities rely heavily on single-use plastics because they are convenient, while poor waste sorting and illegal dumping make it the situation even worse. Low awareness and limited community involvement further show that this is more of a social and behavioral problem rather than a technical one. So to address this, I propose a community-driven plastic waste management approach. This includes engaging the community using digital reward system to encourage proper wasting sorting, improve their recycling facilities in public space, and working with local business to promote reusable alternative. This approach focuses on changing behavior and in urban setting, convenience often comes before environmental responsibility, and enforcement alone is not enough to create lasting change. So by involving the community, people will begin to feel shared responsibility and understand their role in solving the problem. So this approach is also practical, especially for students and young adults. Activities like community cleanups, reward-based recycling, and clearly labeled recycling bins are easy to carry out. Since most urban residents are comfortable with digital platforms, this initiative can be engaging, affordable, and scalable. And in conclusions, a community-driven approach addresses plastic waste by focusing on behavior and social responsibility. It fits well into urban lifestyle and empowers communities to take ownership of sustainable solution. And I think that's all from my perspective. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take any question or feedback.
Excuse me, Faisal. So sorry for interrupting you. And may I respond briefly? So I agree with the importance of community engagement. However, I'm not entirely convinced that social motivation alone can sustain recycling behavior once incentives or campaigns fail.
Thank you, Kirtikaa, for the question. That's a fair concern. However, social motivation is not meant to work alone. When cycling becomes a shared social norm through education, community involvement, and visible participation, it can sustain long-term behavior by building habits and a sense of collective responsibility rather than relying on a short-term incentive.
Yeah, I agree that social norms are important. From an environmental perspective, this matters because consistent behavior change directly reduces plastic leakage into rivers, landfills, and even ecosystems. So thank you, Faisal. To continue from my perspective, plastic waste management has become one of the most serious environmental challenges in today's urban settings. The cities generate huge amount of plastics every single day, yet all this waste is poorly managed. Urban areas also rely heavily on landfills and incineration to manage plastic waste. So this brings us to the main complication, which is the environmental pollution, microplastic contamination, and excessive dependence on unsustainable waste disposal methods. So to address these complications, I strongly support the resolution of establishing urban circular economy zones. So these zones significantly reduce environmental pollution. So instead of plastic waste being dumped into landfills or illegally discarded into rivers or drains, plastics are collected, sorted, and processed properly. This will reduce the amount of waste leaking into natural ecosystems. Secondly, this approach helps us to control microplastic contamination. Plastics only turn into microplastics when they are left exposed in the environment. So by managing these plastics in controlled recycling systems, these circular economy zones prevent uncontrolled degradation, which reduces microplastic formation, protect diversity, and lower health risks to both wildlife and humans. Other than that, urban circular economic zones support climate and ecosystem sustainably. Recycling and reusing plastic require significantly less energy compared to producing new plastics from raw materials. This reduces greenhouse gases emissions and supports climate change mitigation efforts. In conclusion, with the
Kirtikaa,
right
I'm sorry.
system, yes.
I'm sorry if I may interrupt. How feasible is the implementation of circular economic zone in existing urban setting with limited space and funding?
Thank you, Mirza, for the question, and that's a valid concern. So these zones can be integrated into existing industrial areas or even redevelopment zones, and the funding can be supported through the public-private partnership.
See, all right, thank you. You may proceed. Sorry.
So to wrap up, in conclusion, with the right system, plastic waste can be managed responsibly, and with the urban circular economy zones, it offers an environmentally sustainable solution that addresses all the complications that I mentioned above. So I guess this is all from my perspective. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Kirtikaa. So can we proceed to Ms. Jing, please? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Zhao. So in my opinion, the major complication is that plastic waste collection still relies highly on the outdated infrastructure, static waste bin, and manual collecting process. On top of that, without real-time information or system integration, waste management operations still remain inefficient and difficult to monitor. To address this challenge, I suggest the implementation of a Smart Plastic Management System, SPMS. This system integrates IoT-enabled smart bin, real-time data transmission, AI-based route optimization, and a mobile application to connect household, collectors, and recyclers within a single digital platform. Now, allow me to justify why implementation of SPMS is the most sustainable option. First, SPMS improve operational efficiency by using IoT-enabled smart bin to monitor the fuel level in real time. It allowing plastic waste collection agency to optimize schedule and rotates using AI-driven analysis. This reduces unnecessary trips, lowers fuel consumption, and minimize issues such as overflowing bin, miscollection, and inefficient manpower use. Additionally, SPMS enhance transparent and decision-making by integrating all stakeholders into a single digital platform, providing reliable real-time data on waste volume, contamination rates, and recycling performance, which help authorities identify problems and implement evidence-based improvement. Finally, SPMS encourage public participation and long-term sustainability through a mobile application that let residents locate bin, track recycling contribution, and receive feedback or incentive, fostering positive habit while supporting Malaysia's smart city and sustainability goals. In conclusion, SPMS offers a comprehensive technology-driven solution that address current inefficiency in plastic waste management while promoting environmental responsibility, operational efficiency, and sustainable urban development.
Excuse me, Jingro, if I may interrupt further for clarification. So while I appreciate the efficiency and transparency offered by SPMS itself, I would like to raise a concern. From my knowledge, technology-based solutions like this would risk treating plastic as a management issue rather than a reduction issue. If we focus too much on optimizing collection, plastic consumption itself may remain high, only managed more efficiently instead of reduced at the source. So my question for you, perhaps we can get further clarification from your perspective. How can SPMS support environmental sustainability without increasing reliance on plastic or creating new environmental costs? Maybe you can elaborate more for this?
Sure. Thank you, Arif. That is a very valid point. I agree that technology alone should not justify continued by plastic consumption. However, SPMS is not designed to replace reduction strategy, but rather than that, it is support them to through data-driven decision making. By tracking plastic type, volumes, and source, SPMS enable authorities to identify high consumption area and implement targeted reduction policies. So in addition, this system can be integrated with renewable energy source and sustainability standard to minimize the environmental trade-off. In short, SPMS should function as an enabler of environmental goals, not a substitute of them.
Thank you, Jingro. And okay, so before we move into selecting the most suitable resolution, I'd like to briefly share my own perspective from policy and governance angle, so it can be considered alongside the others. So from what I have observed, the main issue in urban plastic waste management is not the lack of ideas, technologies, or even public awareness, but the real challenge lies in the absence of the clear, ununified, enforceable government structure. Sorry, Malaysia has already initiative like Malaysia Plastic Sustainability Roadmap, but in practice, implementation is still fragmented across states and local councils. We see overlapping responsibilities, different enforcement standards, and unclear accountability. And as a result, even well-designed initiatives struggle to produce consistent outcomes. This isn't unique to Malaysia, everyone. Globally, studies like I read before, such as from the World Bank, has shown that fragment governance is one of the key reasons that urban waste management system fail. So based on that, I strongly support the idea of establishing a national urban plastic governance framework, and it was supported by Plastic Accountability Act. This framework will standardize waste segregation and recycling regulation across urban areas, clearly define roles of federal agencies, local authorities, producers, consumers, and strengthen coordination of enforcement. And at the same time, the Plastic Accountability Act would formalize and standard producer responsibility, making producers accountable for the full life cycle of plastic product instead of placing burden mainly on local councils. Under framework, responsibilities are clarified between federal agencies, state governments, and local council. So councils are not left handled everything alone. Enforcement will also be supported by national standard, shared data system, and federal level technical and financial assistance. So in other words, instead of council struggling on its own, they operate within the system. So for those reasons, I believe the resolution deserves serious consideration. Is there any question, please? Yes, Jingro?
Sorry for interruption. As unknown, local council are already overstretched in terms of manpower and resource. So how realistic is that to expect them to enforce even stricter regulation under your proposes framework.
Okay, that's a valid question. And I agree that many local councils are already under pressure. That's exactly why this framework is important because the goal is not to add more burden to local authorities, but to make enforcement more structured, coordinated, and supported. So under the framework, responsibilities are clarified between federal agencies, state government, and local councils. So councils are not left to handle everything alone. Enforcement will also support by national standards, shared data, and federal level technical. So in other words, instead of each council struggling on its own, they operate within a system that provides guidance, resources, and clear lines of accountability.
Okay, thank you.
So is there any more question or objection? So I take it as a no, right? All right. Thank you, everyone. So we have now heard all perspectives from economic, social, environmental, technological, and governance. So at this stage, I think we can move to the decision making. All right. Okay. Let's move forward. Rather than deciding unilaterally, I'd like to hear briefly from each one of you which resolution or combination of resolutions you believe is the most effective and feasible based on today's discussion. And can I hear from your view, Arif, from economic and operational perspective?
Thank you so much, Mirzal. So, based on the discussion that we had just now, I would support two resolutions. The first one is the National Urban Plastic Governance Framework with the Plastic Accountability Act. So, from an economic standpoint, this framework provides regulatory certainty and also stability, which I think is very important for any market driven recycling system to function better and effectively. Secondly, I would also strongly support the Smart Plastic Management System, the SPMS. So, from this incentive, what we can see is that the operational efficiency, cost reduction, and also data driven monitoring are critical to ensure economic sustainability in the long run. So, in my view, governance provides the rules of the game, while SPMS ensures the system operates efficiently within those rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Arif. Duly noted. Can I hear from social perspective, Faisal?
Yeah, sure, Mirza. Thank you. And so from social perspective, I also support both resolutions. The National Urban Plastic Governance Framework is crucial because it standardizes expectation and responsibility, which helps communities understand their role clearly. And at the same time, the SPMS encourages participation through transparency, feedback, and incentive tracking, which supports behavioral change among urban residents. And from my view, without governance, community efforts may remain fragmented, and without technology, engagement may not be sustained. Therefore, I believe these two resolutions complement each other effectively.
Thank you, Faisal. So now, can I hear from Kirtikaa, environmental perspective from your side?
Thank you, Mifsad. So as what Arif and Faisal have said before, I would also support these two resolutions, but with an important emphasis. The National Urban Plastic Governance Framework is essential to ensure environmental protection is prioritized through regulation, enforcement, and accountability, particularly through extended producer responsibility. While Arif initially raised concern regarding SPMS, I support Jingro's point of view where its implementation as a supporting mechanism, provided it operates within strong environmental governance and sustainability guidelines. In combination, these two resolutions allow environmental objectives to remain central while ensuring efficient implementation.
Thank you, Kirtikaa. So finally, can I hear from yours, Jingro, technology and system perspective?
Sure, thank you, Mifzal. So naturally, I support the SPMS as a key resolution. However, I also strongly agree that SPMS can only function efficiently under a clear governance framework. So without a standardized policy and enforcement, technology risks being underutilized or inconsistently applied. Therefore, I also support to adopting both the Natural Urban Plastic Governance Framework, and SPMS as the top 2 resolution.
Okay, everyone. So from my chairperson's perspective, I am in agreement that smart plastic management system is a strong and relevant resolution. That said, success depends heavily on having a clear and coordinated governance structure in place. Without uniform policies and firm enforcement, technological solution may not implemented consistently and used to their full potential. So for this very reason, I support positioning the National Urban Plastic Governance Framework together with SPMS as two leading resolutions as they complement each other and strengthen overall implementation. Based on input shared, all panel members have expressed support for the National Urban Plastic Governance Framework with a Plastic Accountability Act. And also, everyone has agreed, right, that smart plastic management system should serve as the supporting execution mechanism. So before we formally adopt this decision, are there any objection or alternative views that member wish to place on record?
I guess that's it from us.
Thank you, Kirtikaa. So now, since there are no further objection, I hereby confirm that this task force unanimously adopts that the National Urban Plastic Governance Framework with a Plastic Accountability Act as primary resolution, and the second one, SPMS, Smart Plastic Management System, as supporting resolution. So these two will be recorded as financial decision of this meeting. We will follow up about this issue of next 4 weeks. Is that all right? I hope we can see some progress regarding this. So thank you once again for your professionalism and thoughtful contribution. So I guess that's all. With that, I officially adjourn this task force meeting and I see you guys again. Thank you, everyone.